for the Shop Report with
Barbershop Jay.
Yes, we're back.
We're back. Oh, yes.
Better than ever. No, that you'll understand later if you haven't seen the news already. But before we go there, let's start right here. Welcome to the Shop Report special presentation of the Turnbuckle. I, of course, am your host, none other than Double J, and I got my guy to my right, probably your right too, depending on where you're looking. None other than Gully from the CO Lumbus. Welcome aboard. Talk to me.
Slow clap this time. Slow clap. Welcome. Glad to be back with you. We're going to get right into it, man. How's your day been, bro? How's your week?
Well, survived Chicago. Left too early, apparently, because I missed a Brinks truck that opened up with $300,000 scattered all across the highway.
No way.
I missed it by a half hour.
They listen, don't worry about it. They got all the license plates. they already did the photo recognition.
Well, so there is my public affirmation that I unfortunately was not in the area. So
yeah. There we go. So you good. You're absolved.
Leave me. Yeah, I would have. You wouldn't have known anyway, but there would have been signs.
There would be signs, right? Your thumbnail would have just been a dollar sign, like this signs.
Literally, like I would wipe my mouth here with $100 bill.
Right, for sure.
Got nothing else around. So we got a ton to continue to dive into with this. The sports landscape has never. It's been a fun 72 hours.
Yeah.
You know, especially coming off kind of that post-mania high.
Right.
You think to yourself, oh, man, okay, this is where it slows down. But, of course, we on this program look at things from a not only just a clear-eyed lens, but certainly multiple lenses. And that's what makes us a little bit different here as well. And something that naturally we've been discussing at, in some cases, nauseum, depending on if it's your cup of tea or not, has certainly been about the TKO acquisition originally.
Right.
How we thought they would put their fingerprints on the product.
Right.
Well, we continue to see more moves and indications of that via the acquisitions of, you know, in Mexico, the Lucha program, otherwise known as AAA.
Yes.
And then, of course, there's another that I'm going to save for you as well. But just when I thought we've got it figured out, there's always an outlier.
Okay.
And it came from some very usual suspects.
Whew. Yeah.
P. Gully, this morning there were shockwaves heard around the world. Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff say they are back and they're teasing a third man.
Yeah.
First thoughts.
You know, the first thoughts are it's great to see those guys reflect on it. But you know, I am not a fan of I'll put it this way. I'm not looking for, or I didn't want a reboot of Martin. I didn't want a reboot of the Fresh Prince, aside from the version that we have now. I didn't want a reboot of Roseanne, but look how the series turned. Point is, things that the magic that was created in the time it was created is there for that time, and our nostalgia and our way of thinking about it, or reflecting on it, is part of what we do as humans, right? It's part of the human experience, right? We don't need to recreate what we have because we miss it so much. When I see these guys, they don't need the black and white video to show me that they're full of gray. Okay, my first thought is, it's too, man, that moment is gone, man. That moment is over. Don't try to redo it. You know what I'm saying? But it was just so magical, in fact, that I, despite my own views on it, I am just the least bit curious at what they got cooking up. Because basically the NWO and what it became to be was so magical for wrestling and, you know, for sports culture, that these guys I'm willing to give a chance to, but they got to hit it right out the park. Because basically it's like, I'm cautiously optimistic, because my default stance is this is going to be terrible. It's like rebooting Will. Matter of fact, that's another one. Will and Grace got rebooted. Frasier got rebooted. Everything from the 90s gets rebooted in the 21st century. And people seem to be okay with that. We love our era so much that we think we can just redo it again. And the magic is not there. That's what I'm thinking with this here. But because it was so powerful, because it was so epic, I'm willing to see, like, all right, I'm not gonna poo-poo it immediately. I want to see what they're coming up with. Hey, but you got to be on. Like, I'm gonna give you a short leash, but you got to be on. And for that reason, I want to see what they're talking about.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here quickly and just say this. I'm not sure what is cooking. I know what The Rock is cooking.
Yeah, by the way, yeah, we should have time for that, because that's some bullshit.
It is. It absolutely, yeah, very interesting. There, obviously, we got Raw running simultaneous with us right now too. I'm seeing Pat McAfee just in the moment dropping some like heck of a promo. Talking about Michael Cole, who's selling.
Hold on, pause. Time out. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on, but let's just talk about how the Cavs are a minute away from a 50-point dismemberment of the Miami Heat to end that series and go and wait for the winner of the Pacers Bucks, which is not going to be a small task at all, especially if it's the Pacers, likely. But it is shout out to the Cleveland Cavaliers, showcasing why they are one of the 3 best teams in the league and one of the 3 favorites to win the title. Probably 3 to 4. The other team is in Massachusetts. But yeah, shout out to the Cavs.
Well, that's how you're supposed to do it. In a era that we see 20-point leads blown, as if it's commonplace in the NBA, that is how you're supposed to beat teams that you are truly superior than.
Yes.
That's arguably one of my many layers of issues that I have with the NBA and its current product. But the Cavs and what they're doing are absolutely a breath of fresh air. With that being said, as well, so definitely want to salute to them, because they're doing, again, not just what they're supposed to do, but when you have that number 1 seed, that's what you're supposed to look like, and that does validate thus far what they accomplished for sure.
Got you. Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
And quickly, as far as this Hogan thing, as long as it's legitimate, this third man is what's really.
What you mean by legitimate?
I would hope that this isn't the best sell for Total T?
Well, did you
With
remember?
Frank Thomas, and and she'll like it too.
All right, so we seen the whole video. Remember, they highlighted, multiple championships, brought people to this level, right? So who are among those guys we could be talking about?
Vince McMahon.
That's the one. That's the one. That's the only one. That's the one that I immediately come to. But like, okay, so we know it won't be Kevin Nash, right? Even though I think that if it were Kevin Nash, he would be about the only one that would help, that would tide me over a little bit, because he still has a pulse on what will and won't work now. And, and he's self-aware. You see what I'm saying? He's self-aware that he would know what could and couldn't work, even for guys at their age. And when I say at their age, I'm talking about, one, their actual age, but two, the fact that we're talking about guys refreshing a concept that is 30 years old. Bro, the NWO is about to be 30 years old. Yeah, so let's be real. Let's be real with it, right? Hey, y'all two, don't y'all start now. It is Monday night, okay? Don't y'all start. You and Mrs. Alva, don't you start with that. Yep, that's going in the reels.
Yeah, right. So who else could it be? Who realistically could it be? Unfortunately, we know who it cannot be. I say no to Kevin Nash because he's still actively involved with WWE in some capacity, even if it's just on Sundays with Rivals.
Gotcha.
Some of the other familiar faces, from the curtain call, are still involved naturally as well, right? So if there's a very short list. We did see Bischoff recently say he wouldn't work for AEW again. So I don't believe it's Tony Khan. It would make sense if it were, but I don't believe that's the case unless he really opened up the book.
Right, but the credentials aren't there. Those credentials mean something. So Tony Khan is excluded from that. So I would say it would be Vincent Kennedy McMahon, or it would be, I don't know, our favorite guy who's the resident what's it call it? Misanthrope. He's got negative about everything. But it would be Jim Cornette. But I don't know if he wants to be that close to Hogan Stench.
I never recalled, did they work well together, right? Because obviously Russo was very pivotal part of WCW.
Yeah, I don't know that Hogan and Cornette ever played nice in the sandbox. I don't know that no, and you know what, for that matter, Jim Cornette and Eric Bischoff, they don't get along, or they don't have the kindest words for each other either. From Bischoff's end, there's a whole lot of, yeah, he's entitled to his opinion, but he don't know what the hell he's talking about. That's how Bischoff plays. He plays with that publicly. Who knows how he talks about it when he's just sitting around and he's got his guys and he's got drinks around him, right? So it can't be Jim Cornette, though. I wish Jim Cornette would be back active in some type of promotion, being some type of advisor to some type of underground or up and coming promotion. It would be great to have him there. But aside from Vince McMahon, who else? Who's a guy who's developed talent? Paul Heyman, Vince McMahon. These are people we already know. Paul Heyman obviously ain't gonna be nowhere near this project or process. Who's left AEW and went on to do other things? Who's cultivated and developed talent? The only name that's the only name that I can remember or I can recall or I'm even aware of is Vince McMahon. So that would be a question for our audience. Like, who
Well,
else are we
it
missing?
depends in the context, and context is key, right?
Okay.
The third man could be almost rhetorical in a way, or in reference to many.
Yeah.
If you were to view it from, say, what we do, a third person could be Paul, could be Barbershop Jay,
Yep.
DJ,
Yep.
Bro Rich, you name it.
Yep.
Are we going to get that podcast, that all-star podcast,
right,
that we've started to see in some of the other professional sports?
Gotcha. Okay, that was okay. Gotcha.
Now, in addition to that, would they latch on to a brand? And that's where, to me, I say it makes the most sense to remain independent, unless, of course, there's, money talks, right? So, but generally speaking, you would like to leave the door open to both. I could understand how one would want exclusive rights, and I'm sure that could be negotiated, right? No different than with ourselves here. So we are listening. Email shopreport365@gmail.com, or just to DM me. As Ted DiBiase once said, everybody has a price. So, do we see them with AEW All In Texas? Or do we see them at Backlash in front of a live studio audience?
Yeah, Invadia. That would be interesting. That would be pretty interesting. Right. Hogan has his. Wait a minute. Didn't Hogan just re-up a deal? Even after that embarrassing promo on Raw, remember Raw where you promoted
yes,
his?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. I thought he re-upped on a Legends contract after that.
It would be interesting to know but here's the thing though, is he's not wrestling with the other company, right? What are the stipulations? What's in the black and white? Pun intended.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, for as skeptical and as nervous as I am about it, I am interested in what it could be. The other thing that I didn't bring up yet is what creative control did Hogan have? Or let's say, to put it differently, did we appreciate Hogan's creative control when it was involving anything other than Hulk Hogan? Unless it was him.
It doesn't work for me, brother.
Right. Right.
Oh, brother, you got me.
Oh, brother, you got me. Right. Right. Yeah.
Why'd you have to get me going, man?
Man, yo, The Undertaker, that's a classic one. Oh, you got me, brother. Yo, that's classic, man. That's classic. And even to this day, and that's the thing, even to this day, he won't drive that nail deeper. Undertaker, he still kind of like holds back a lot of what he wants to say about Hogan. Oh, he holds back
Bro, I'm telling you right now, you get me to a point where I'm really about to risk it all the years that we put into this thing to play that clip live of him doing his Hoganisms. I won't, right? We just, monetization, right. But
nah, man, we got to get there. I want to be able, we got to get there, man. We got to be able to get there. But that's what I'm saying. So what creative control Hogan, who has it benefited but aside from him? Right? That's the question.
Well, did it benefit Booker T?
No, it didn't. Who did he? And remember, he had so somebody tell me when he was in TNA, after WCW, when he spent that time in TNA, what did creative control Hogan contribute that to the better or the improvement of that product or necessary or to stars. Like, did AJ Styles appreciate him? When Samoa Joe, you know, the guys that were around, and I could be missing names for guys that weren't around, but for guys that were around with CC Hogan, how did it benefit? Now with Bischoff, we obviously know because Bischoff's never, you know, he's not a wrestler. He's always been a promoter or creative. You know, he's been the creative visionary, if you will, right? That was his job. That was his thing. So that's the one question. That's one big question that I have. Hogan's firmly in the creative side. You're not about to see another leg drop, bro. We're not about to see a clothesline. We're not about to see nothing off the top. None of that. So what does Hogan truly have to offer? And I'm saying it, it's not necessarily a rhetorical question either. I'm actually questioning what does he have to offer in this capacity? You know what I'm saying? That's the question I have. And again, I'm cautiously, a little less than cautiously optimistic about it. I'm far more skeptical. But those guys, they hit it out the park, changed the game. So they deserve another shot.
My thing is this. I mean, the obvious choice is Jimmy Hart, right? Like, did he not?
Oh, yeah.
You know, if anybody's been right or die, right or wrong, man, and that's who I felt terrible for when the Boo Birds were there. Jimmy Hart was a part of, as we've seen with some of his music, right? Yeah. Jim Johnson comes to mind, but then of course Jimmy Hart produced plenty of bangers, if you will, as the kids say.
That's a versus for you, Jimmy Hart versus Jim Johnson. Bro. That's
okay. Now we're cooking with grease. We may have just started a 4-alarm fire.
Hey,
bro.
Listen, we got to do that. Coming up soon, we got to do that. Not now. Save it.
No. That's the next week thing. But you may have. We stumbled on greatness every. Like they say, a broken clock's right twice a day. So there we go. He, of course, was a part of the Gentrys, which is a band.
Yes.
In the 70s, I want to say, maybe earlier than that.
Yeah.
I don't want to date them, I think from the 60s to the early 70s. But that Keep On Dancing, there you go. That was Jimmy Hart.
Right.
But so that would make the most sense to me, of course. However, if it's NWO style, that does kind of serve as a little bit of an outlier for me. With that is certainly a caveat worth. It'll be interesting to see what they ultimately come up with, though. What do you any final thoughts on this? Any final guesses that you want to throw out there?
No, I have none. I absolutely have none. Vince McMahon is the only guess I would have. Now, if Vince McMahon that is a shocker for a multitude of reasons. But because there's still an interest in what Vince McMahon would do around professional wrestling. We see a lot of what we see with WWE now. We see a lot of the contrast of a Vince McMahon led creative versus versus a Triple H led creative. There's a lot to admire, but there's some of that conservative old school appeal that we hate it, but for some reason we seem to be missing it. Or I would say, even if we don't miss it, we wouldn't mind seeing it again. Because clearly Tony Khan and them don't have it. Tony Khan and AEW, they don't present what wrestling used to be.
I heard Bully Ray say something that at some point the wrestling doesn't always keep them coming back, but the charisma does, the personality does.
Right.
So to your point, where AEW went to set themselves apart, unfortunately, I think they're still missing the mark.
Yeah.
And we'll see what happens from there. But if they align themselves, I don't know. What do you make of that if that ended up being the case?
If they align themselves with AEW or like this, No, it's got to be bigger than that. AEW, it's got to be bigger than that. That third man, there's going to need more of AEW needs more of a push than having legacy guys talk about them. They need to stop no selling. They need to stop no selling specials.
Oof.
That's the thing. They need to stop that. Like immediately. Yeah, immediately with a G and a J. Among other things.
Absolutely. And so with that being said, we will take our first time out, and then we got some LFG on the way before some Raw as well. Stay tuned.
I'm Jordan Gudeman, and I'm the founder and CEO of Eddie G's Cookies. I was first diagnosed with a nut allergy when I was young. At the time, there weren't a lot of labeled items that said if there may contain nuts or there are nuts in the food, so my brother and sister and I baked a lot at home, and we enjoyed treats from mixes and things like that, but I noticed that it was not the same as what my friends were enjoying, and I started making up my own recipes. When it was time to pick a career, I decided to start a bakery so I could share my treats with everybody else. When I started creating my recipe, I was taking in all the things that I thought I was missing out on. A soft, chewy center, a crisp outside crust, and a taste that is just like it came out of the oven at a bakery. When I put all those things together, I'd come up with a recipe for a dream cookie. Eddie G's Cookies only uses the finest ingredients. We have all natural flavorings, no preservatives, and every cookie is made in a nut-free environment. The best part about Eddie G's Cookies is that they can be delivered right to your door. You can share them or not. We won't tell.
Cleaning the cracks on your pavement surfaces can take hours and be torturous on your body. Until now. Buy Cracky Weed Removal Tool was designed specifically to clean pavement cracks in a fraction of the time, all while standing up. Buy Cracky's patented design incorporates a two-sided steel blade and is encased by a durable fiberglass shell. Simply use the large end to clean big gaps, then rotate and use the small tip for narrow gaps. Made in the USA, Buy Cracky eliminates weeds to the root and is environmentally friendly. Buy Cracky. Save your back while you clean your crack.
All right, and just like that, we are back. And before we go forward with some LFG, we want to kind of dive into some. First, tell me you did not just say that. And it comes from Dominic Mysterio. Dominic, of course, after winning the IC title, said, and I quote, "I did one long glance, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw my mom. And the only thing I did was shove the title directly in her face because I'm pretty sure none of them thought I could do it either." D Gully, what you got for that?
He really driving hard at becoming a dirty Dom. He's really driving that hard. Did he mention his dad at all?
Oh, well, he's continued to. His dad, you mean Eddie?
Yeah. Oh, no. I mean, the guy that's listed on the birth certificate.
He did, and he said he doesn't have to wear a mask. He's not bald. Basically took every shot he could and said he's actually carrying the legacies of both
his fathers, right?
Yep. And it's obviously with reference to both Ray and to Eddie. And I will say this right now, he is climbing my charts of GOAT heels.
That's crazy for you to say that, man.
He's just the kid. It's too natural. It is way too natural. He's doing this at public appearances, dude, with like the hidden cameras at like, you know.
Yeah. I seen what he did to Scott Steiner. when he won.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's right. I'm almost immediately after. What do?
Yeah.
You pointed to the parent.
Yeah, and pointed to the uncle of him. Like,
wasn't his brother there too?
Was Rick there? I don't remember. I just know the video that I saw at the moment in particular that I'm talking about. He was talking with. I saw Scott was there, but
where was no with him? Wasn't Braun's brother with him?
Yeah.
See what, dude? Look at what we said in a matter of like a day and a half. This dude does like. Yeah, some of it is like in the moment, right? Just here, mom,
Yeah.
In your face. And then, then to the other party?
Right. So greatest heels of all time. I mean, listen, I would say he got a fast start, but I think he still got a ways to go.
Fair enough. Absolutely. And as far as some of the others, there's been an interesting kind of back and forth taking place between, of course, wrestling aficionado Dave Meltzer.
Yeah.
And of course, none other than the Rock. One aspect of it that I do want to point out is that it came out just a few days ago now that Dave was urged to coax The Rock back to WWE as far as for WrestleMania. And then in addition to that, we had a quote at one point in time, of course, from The Rock himself making an appearance on the Pat McAfee show, where he was stating that, TKO CEO Ari Emanuel had called him for help because the ticket sales were for the Elimination Chamber, PLE, were low and wanted something must see. And then, of course, he came up with the sell your soul idea for Cody, and Triple H suggested Cena. And of course, The Rock also claimed he didn't appear at WrestleMania because he wanted to take a step back and wanted to make it about John and Cody, and the final boss didn't need to be involved.
That makes no sense.
Record for saying that
makes no sense. Wait. Right, that makes no sense whatsoever. He takes it. He sets up the heel turn for Cena. With the trademark, right? Hands across the throat. Put Cena in that position, but then decides, oh, well, I don't need to be here. So let me take a step back. Like, none of that makes sense. None of it whatsoever. It sounds like, or maybe he did really genuinely think that and just totally missed on what happened. Maybe if he stepped back that way, then there should not have had Travis Scott do that, run in and interfere. If you're gonna step all the way back, then let Cena beat Cody clean. Or dirty without, you know what I'm saying, low blow, whatever, chair shot, whatever else. Don't put a third person in that position, because that made Cody look very weak. Unless that was the plan, to make Cody look very weak. In which case, mission accomplished. Because I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. I don't understand what The Rock is saying. Rock he's never not made sense to me. But this one does.
I'm going to pull the actual one here. I found another great exchange. All right, so here's one. All right, from Dave himself, but again, that was in March. So, wow, oh my, dude, the politics of this is insane. Oh, here's another brilliant one. Ready?
Yeah.
I need, this is going in reference to WrestleMania, of course. I'm going to pull this up here so everybody can see it. Dave Meltzer, at no other time in history would a promotion of any size have allowed Randy Orton squashing Joe Hendry, but TNA itself positions itself as a company constantly looking for discarded crumbs from WWE and figures anything to keep an open relationship is good for exposure. TNA agreed to it, which in a sense showed how desperate they really are because no strong company would have done so. The quick win was one thing, but the second RKO after the match did leave you with the idea that this guy is the level of or below a WWE prelim guy.
No, not at all.
Yeah, have your say on this.
So Randy Orton stepping back to admire the entire WWE universe, at least the entire audience, singing his song, singing Joe Hendry's theme like it was Cody's, like it was Seth's, like it was Randy Orton's himself. But somehow it made TNA look weak. No, what it did was it put it in perspective like, yo, while I am Joe Hendry, I am simply Randy Orton, but now we've got crossover appeal now because at least our universe fully well acknowledges that there are other realms out there side of WWE talent, and more of this can happen. More of this can happen in the future. There can be a time for a guy like Joe Hendry to come up and get a win. I felt like perhaps maybe it shouldn't have been a squash, but it doesn't make TNA look weak. I don't think. I just think in the end, it was an all-time great, a first ballot Hall of Famer in Randy Orton doing a job versus Joe Hendry.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you on the concept of just what that match meant, and absolutely couldn't agree more that it was not anything that would have never been a word I would have associated with that for both the companies involved as well as for Joe Hendry's brand and even for Randy Orton's legacy. I think in any circumstance that would have been deemed positive. Additionally, to take that a step further, I'm going to point out, again, those acquisitions that WWE's made and the affiliation or somewhat of a grassroots type of approach with these wrestling schools, again, for the most part, former WWE alums in some capacity. And now going way in the Wayback Machine, those that have been with us for a while on the turnbuckle know that I talked about TKO's influence and fingerprints on what made ultimately the UFC so great, which was, yes, sure, that original Ultimate Fighter and leading to the PLE, but it was more than that. Ultimately, they did a fantastic job of having that content on almost in a 24/7 type of manner. And the fact of the matter is, by doing so, what we're starting to see is essentially this pyramid form for the new, not just hierarchy for A program, B program. And again, retiring that belt by John Cena really does reiterate that, yes, this is a new era. But what we're seeing with these specific acquisitions is that we're now going to start seeing shows or programming and content whether that's Speed on a Wednesday, NXT on a Tuesday, LFG on a Sunday, Evolve on Tuesday in this case.
By a vow on Saturday.
Well, and so again, when you think about it here, right, we talked about, we're mentioning LFG. And I mentioned on, I believe, we had dual episodes because of course, WrestleMania's dual nights taking place, that we had a winner, or loser goes home match, in which, of course, Cutler James was going against BJ.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, it's Bully Ray's decision. And, of course, Bully Ray decides that BJ has that it factor via charisma and attitude, we'll call it, that Cutler James just hasn't displayed.
Right.
And it seems all doom and gloom for him and his dream career. However, of course, what those that have watched the show may recall is that, hey, who the heck are these two guys? It was light-skinned dude and Cutler James, that showed up when BJ got hurt. So where did they come from? Right? Who were they? It would have been awfully hard to get a call back, right? After somebody really did crush somebody's dreams.
Yeah, exactly.
we need you for 2 weeks. You just do that, but you got to go after that. Like,
right.
Like, what? Like,
you're all done. I'll never see this again. Right. You're all done. You'll never work in this town again. After next Saturday, see what happened was we got somebody had a call off. So after next Saturday, come in and work next Saturday. You'll never work in this town again. Yeah, but next Saturday, can you be here about 4 to 8? So hey, that's what it is.
The thing is, Cutler James had actually more charisma about a year ago or so when he was doing some next gen stuff. And so for those of us that are really, at this point, sponsorship would be phenomenal, people here, because I have to dedicate so many hours to this. But he was a part of obviously WWE Next Gen. If I didn't add that as another show, there you have it. Hello. And of course, when BJ was ultimately kept on board, well, Cutler was of course done via the show, but he ends up on another show. And that's where this new program, WWE Evolve, comes into play. And the thing is, it's on Tubi. So if you remember, I talked about creating this infinity loop, not to be confused with what they have going on there, but you could suggest that that's a little bit of a WWE as a nucleus. There is a little symbolism in that if you could read through it.
Right.
But they themselves, this does represent evolution. I told you at one point in time, in my opinion, and I felt like I was nervous going off on that limb, but I feel very much validated, that NXT was the third show, that it was no longer just Next, but more so AAA.
Gotcha.
By baseball terms.
Yep.
This now suggests between Next Gen, Evolve, LFG, Speed, SmackDown, Raw, they're replicating exactly what I said would need to take place, but also ensuring their dominance in all corners of the spectrum via the lower hanging fruit and partnerships. And this is where Tony Khan is still playing with something not either chess or checkers.
Right. He's still lacking. Did not understand it.
You can't lose in both. And this is where my level of disappointment could not be higher, because I said there was no greater opportunity with the circus no longer coming to town. And yes, what we've saw is actually it sounded like it didn't fall on deaf ears at all. As I showed you, Gully, it being AEW are coming to Detroit and going to be at the Masonic Temple. Free plug. The Masonic Temple is somebody that went and seen a History Channel cast. I'll let you decide which one. At that very same venue, it is far more intimate and intentionally limited, but it gives you vibes of the old ECW.
Right.
Way, way smaller.
Yeah.
Especially with LCA, Little Caesars Arena, being literally like 2 blocks away. Shador Sanders could throw a football and hit it.
He gonna throw a whole lot of them, or maybe not.
To be
Get your
determined.
jerseys. Right.
And what do you make of all of this? Because you've been the resident savant. I've been very much the business patriarch in all of this, who would certainly love to gauge your thoughts now that it's no longer theoretical and it looks far more absolute. Is this really the wave of the future, and how WWE cements itself for the next 100 years?
You meaning by having a televised product at all stages of the game?
Correct.
Yes,
In this
absolutely.
capacity.
Yeah, absolutely. Because content is king, and any form of content that you can control, that you can capture an audience on, is worthwhile. So now you can see talent progress. It is the fifth wall. It is another element of the fifth wall, because we know that all of these different programs are taking people and talent coming from being green and raw to changing their identities and getting better as they progress through the ranks to finally be at the premier program of SmackDown Raw, and at the premier live events of the pay-per-views, namely the Big Four, in particular the Big Four. So now we see WWE embracing, showing the actual evolution, no pun intended, of the talent. See, we get with the OVWs and all that was a pipeline for WWE. However, it was segmented far enough that it almost like by design, it was segmented far enough that that there was a distinction between what you saw there and eventually what it would become. Now, in this generation, they're not too concerned about separating the beginnings from the masterpiece, from the finished product. They want you to be able to see it all, so that way you can follow the journey of the next big star down to his beginning, when he was still trying to figure out his stage presence and figure himself out on the mic and figure out his gimmick and then figure out his moveset and figure out what works. So this is actually a really great move, one that I didn't think, a few years ago would be worth the effort or worth the money. But when you're in WWE and you have the cash, you have access to the capital that you do, given their own coffers and given their partnership with TKO, you do have the ability to try a lot of things out. Maybe that's what Tony Khan is missing. Tony Khan is missing because, as rich as he may be and his dad might be, he don't have TKO money that we know of. So maybe he doesn't have the ability to do what you suggested. However, the big however is, we're talking about taking a chance and taking a risk and it paying off. I'm going to say, I don't think this was something that maybe AEW thought about and or didn't think about. I think maybe this was something that they thought about and passed on. And so now it's showing up. WWE took advantage of this opportunity, creating these inroads with programming, showing the developing talent, creating inroads with cross-promotional programming like TNA, buying up other programs with a distinct presentation like AAA. So they're showing that they're embracing the world around them more so than just MJF mentioning the other programs when he's dissing them.
Agreed. And to take it a step further, again, now Cutler, of course, still very green, right? But he's in dark state in NXT, like I mentioned with Evolve. We've only seen this kind of movement theoretically in video games.
Yeah.
This has always been, as much as critical as we've been about, and no group is more critical than the sports entertainment community, in my opinion. We've somehow all found each other to be miserable with what we're seeing. And yet we still don't turn it off. Imagine that. And so, and yet now we have even more things to actually, discuss. But again, business-wise, absolutely makes sense. I couldn't be happier to see, as far as to your point that you made about Tony Khan and saying that AEW may have looked at this and said, we're going to pass. I think in large part, it would have been for the same reasons that WCW was not successful with multiple shows, is that they simply did not have either A, the budget, or B, the talent. And certainly C, in this case, which has been the most critical, which is the booking.
Gotcha. Well, like Eric Bischoff said, they were stretched thin with the budget, the talent, plus the oversight. So you wanted the same budget. You want multiple shows with the same budget to produce revenue. And then you also wanted your hands on the presentation of that product as well. So having your cake and eating it too is a massive understatement. Compared to, that's based off of how Eric Bischoff presented it. The frustrations. I don't know that Tony Khan had quite the same types of frustrations or limits, but I think they still underestimated what it truly means to court other established brands, since you have the one thing that they don't have, the other established brands. You have the TV contract. You are already on TV. You have the TV. You have the means and the mode and the machine to produce content for television and to produce pay-per-views. So you had a leg up. You had a big advantage there. Exercise that by working with other promotions to help leverage your talent to give a different look, to continue giving different looks, which is what you're trying to do it at the core, by becoming a full-fledged brand separate from WWE. So you had part of it right, and you had part of the machine right. This here was an opportunity to build and develop on it, and we coming up short. And I hate it because I want to see AEW continue to. I want to see them thrive. They need to stop no selling signatures and specials, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, they have a lot of things that have to be addressed, but it certainly starts with the contract. So to your point about what WWE might be doing a little bit differently with these is, you may think, well, my goodness, if they have more programming, that means more people, right? Which solves one of the bigger issues that I was talking about before on building, and how hard it would be to build and ultimately sell someone that we otherwise would not know. But with these shows having a grassroots type of approach, This, on the other hand, gives us far more insight into who they are and their personas, as we've talked about, even dating back to last week, with everything being a work, with the work being 24/7 at this point. And what I find even more exciting about this is they're doing this while reaching new audiences in different ways, right? And you've heard me speak to the issue that I believe all youth sports is going to face over the next 2 decades, which is being able to run into that crossroads of pay to play and actually putting the best players out there. WWE, on the other hand, isn't excluding any audiences in this case. They're actually, in my opinion, reaching them in a better way and a broader way than they ever have been able to pre-2000. I would actually go as far as to say that they wouldn't be able to do this and haven't been able to do this in terms of reach since the early 90s, since WrestleMania 3, when things were broadcast only on, we'll call it your ABCs, your NBCs, etc.
Right.
Now with a show like Evolve on something like Tubi, which is of course free.
Yes.
Speed on Twitter, free.
Yes.
The paywalls are there for Raw, sure.
Right.
And certainly with your PLEs.
Well, Tubi, paywalls are there with Tubi, right? No,
it's not free with ads.
Huh?
You can watch free with ads.
That's what I meant. I meant to say they're still getting ads. The WWE is still getting ad revenue. They still can make revenue off of ads for the Tubi, but they're not right. But the product itself isn't behind the paywall. So my bad, I misspoke.
Correct. So you're talking about being able to reach a different demographics better than you've ever been able to, while maximizing revenue potential through the main A and B programs. And then being able to create a 24/7 type of networking and programming that otherwise would have theoretically been impossible with just utilizing the talent from Raw and SmackDown.
Right. So it is becoming bigger. So the universe is growing. And when we see now let's take a look at what they're actually showing us, right? So to see if it's worth, our time. I don't know. I like for things like this to be successful.
Look what we're seeing now on NXT, right? You've seen the likes of Liv Morgan. You've seen, naturally you've seen CM Punk at one point in time.
Right.
It truly is growing into that third brand.
Yep.
And it also shows the momentum that can be gained from a show like LFG.
Right.
Where you can put someone who is still rather green and who lost on a show, but still won somehow, right?
Right.
Sometimes the unfortunate side of this business is you could end up being the house show guy.
Yeah.
A lot of dark matches.
Yo, I mean, listen, shout out to the Brooklyn Brawler. Like, it takes me to grow up to realize, in my 30s, what his job was. His job was to get out there and look terrible every week, but to find out who really can go and who can't. I didn't recognize what a jobber was. I didn't recognize that enhancement talent was that. When I came of when I came up watching wrestling, Tito Santana was already past his Intercontinental title run. He was always losing. So I thought he was trash, but I didn't recognize he was an enhancement talent. Some of these guys that we might see may become that. They may become the guys that are the gatekeepers. They train a guy and make sure that this guy is ready for the next progression in his career. Right. That may be the end road for some of these guys that we see on Evolve and NXT or what have you. If they're okay with it, I'm okay with it. The idea of the possibility of being able to see that and being entertained by seeing that process, that's something that I didn't think of years ago. Or I mean, as I was a kid, I didn't think of being able to watch the developing talent as much as we can, having as much access to view developing talent and then appreciate it that it's developing talent. So what this does is it actually, I can make an argument, it actually helps, but then goes to challenge the independent circuit that we see, the carnival shows that we see. When I'm talking about like the OHWA, whatever, prime time real wrestling that's at your high school auditorium. I mean, they're pretty close. They're hovering close to that level of programming that we're seeing. But that gives those guys some hope, because now those guys breaking a neck, almost literally, unfortunately, to entertain just a few hundred people that's there for a petting zoo. Now they can get to Evolve.
Well, and it's interesting you mentioned that, right? When I look at the youth sports pyramid, and you have what's known as MLS Next in soccer, and you have IBL in AAU on the AAU side, and they have naturally some big dollars attached to both for the level of exposure that the kids get in their pathway to pro.
Yeah.
Well, naturally, a 15-year-old game, like Aiden played outside of the Chicago Fire Stadium yesterday.
Yeah.
You can see, okay, this is where I am and this is where I'm headed.
Right.
But that regional, or not even regional, I'll say local promotion that has tentacles to WWE means those resources will also follow. That's the difference here. Is this is going to make one bleeping great video game to be able to work your way, truly take your superstar all the way up. And 2K, you better, tap us in at least as some, give us announcers.
Oh man, that would be perfect. You know what? That's the next thing. Create your announcing team.
Yeah, THQ, 2K, you name it. Back in the day.
Develop an announcing team, and then, hey, try that career arc. You're an announcer. You get to figure out the prompts, see if it resonates, see if you can get the crowd to move. And then if you can, then okay, then hey, your announcer's got to take a bump. You know what I'm saying? Oh, man. So, man,
hang on. There's limits here.
Listen, yeah.
You're gonna see me doing this.
Right.
And I'm not. Hey, that. Believe me, those in the industry know that has nothing to do with X-Pac or DX.
Right. Right. He was like,
yo. That means I'm out. I'm through. Medical attention. Things had not gone according to plan. So, but I agree. Yes, that intimate setting that still has serious financial backing and puts these guys on a pathway to pro. I love it. I'm here for it. And I think it'll be really exciting to see who our first individual is that could take it to that level.
Right.
And so with that being said, of course, we do have some LFG to quickly dive into, because starting next week, Gully, is when the elimination playoffs begin in LFG. So all these other weeks all for naught. Remember, they all can't go with you, unfortunately. And so just to kind of recap, as I mentioned, Cutler James, of course, who's now a part of NXT and Evolve, was eliminated. And so it wasn't all doom and gloom, at least for him, but he was a replacement. He was not like these other guys and gals, for that matter. In our most recent episode, of course, we did have our current superstar being AJ Styles, being the guest picker for determining who the points go to.
Yep.
And of course, he wanted them to emphasize personal branding. And AJ specifically wanted them to embody their chosen monikers.
Okay.
So again, for context, in episode 10, and I wanted to gauge your thoughts on this too, really quickly. The caveat was something was going to go wrong. You just didn't know what at the moment. So we had examples of the turnbuckle breaking.
Right.
We had the lights go out.
Right.
We had another where, they needed to go an additional 3 minutes.
Gotcha. See, all of these things we get to see now as fans. And then at the same time, we get to the live program, or even at the program level, we're still watching it. We're supposed to take this as we're supposed to take it as live and not predetermined. Right? The suspension of disbelief is remarkable. But we've all seen all of these things happen, right? The turnbuckle break. You know, when you said that, the first thing I thought of the turnbuckle breaker was a tag team title matchup, Hart Foundation versus the Rockers, in the turnbuckle
Exactly.
break.
Yes.
And how it killed the match.
It did, or more recently, just involved with the rope itself. We'll say specifically was, of course, when. Oh gosh, I almost said Roman Reigns, but Damian Priest, when his leg got hung up there.
Right. These sort of, these are the things that can happen when it doesn't go as planned. Right?
Well, and as Taker mentioned, with the lights going out, he actually brought up his match where apparently the arena got struck by lightning.
Yeah.
And again, their communication is such a. I love that the fourth wall has officially came down. Like, we're renovating here.
Yes, right. We're renovating. Yeah. Absolutely. We're renovating. Yeah. Pardon our dust.
Literally,
you can find the cereal and pancakes in aisle 7A right now. Right.
And so we're at a point now where, and this is in spite of, and this is what I like about that, right? Is that what was on display there was, sure, depending on where you're sitting, what your vantage point is. Because there are a handful of other wrestlers, there were a handful of fans in this particular venue.
Yep.
At the Performance Center.
Right.
And, of course, the judges. And you're hearing kind of in real time, right? Yes, some of this has already is a work, and they've already figured some of these things out.
Right.
But there are some live X factors as well. We've already seen somebody go into business for themselves just a week prior.
Right.
And when I thought, how much weirder could it get? Well, that's exactly what they did, and found just about as many real extremes that we've seen in our lifetimes. And I thought it was phenomenal because it really does indicate that there is elements of unknown.
Yep.
In spite of something that is supposed to be, for the naysayers, just a scripted, a predetermined outcome. It's not quite that simple. Right.
It's all fake. Yeah, it's nothing fake about it. It is storytelling. And yeah, it's a story. There's a story that has to be told, and ideally it's told a specific way.
Getting into, again, this particular episode, the standout performances were Zena Sterling from Team Bubba Ray. I mean, he's kind of gone with Bubba or Bully. Both, depends who you ask. And then, of course, Jasper Troy. Gosh, he gives me who was married to the singer out of Chicago? I almost said Keisha Cole, but I'm not talking about Keisha Cole. This is Jennifer Hudson. Who was married to Jennifer Hudson at one point in time?
David Otunga.
Yes, he gives me David Otunga vibes.
Okay.
And ultimately, those two were who were selected as the standout performers. And the standings up to this point are Team Undertaker at 7, Booker T at 6, Bubba Ray at 4, and Mickey James at 3. And so again, as the playoffs approach, the future greats themselves must continue to kind of refine and the in-ring abilities and character work to ultimately avoid elimination.
Right.
Yep. And so it'll be really interesting now because to me, this is a part of this that we've seen for this is where it counts. Like that's it. Like in theory, practice is over.
Yeah, right. It's game time now.
And as you pointed out, and this is what I love about that fourth wall and that renovation, as we talked about, there's going to be predetermined outcomes.
Yes.
When success and failure,
yeah,
you're going to be told you have to lose.
Yeah, I want to know whose stock is going to rise the highest in a loss. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Who's got to take the L, but will move on despite taking the L? That's what I'm here for, right? Those are the ones that count. Usually, right, the person who loses does more for the winner than the winner for winning. Get what I mean?
Absolutely.
It's unless you're Sting at WrestleMania versus Triple H.
Oh, man.
But even in that case, yeah, it does, because people wonder, well, why the heck did that even happen? You know why? Like, why did that even happen? So with
get it off your chest, man.
Yeah, I really like Sting was so right to not go to WWE when the opportunity presented itself the first time. He was absolutely correct to not go, and he should have never went. I would have told them, listen, the only way I'm going is if I get a match with the Taker at WrestleMania. That's the only, if that's not happening, if we're not building for that, then I'm not taking a part of this. I don't need a world title. I don't need a WWE title. I don't need a universal title. I don't need an intercontinental title. I need a program with the other mystic that reigned while I reigned, and that's it. So, because that's the only question people wanted to see: Sting versus Taker. Could Taker get the job done? And Taker having already, well, by that time, the streak ended that same night, right?
It did.
All right, so there was the aura of the streak that could have been in play, or let's say if the streak had ended that night, to have Taker versus Sting at the next WrestleMania, it's a possibility, because now they're taking a loss once to Brock. You know what I'm saying? So he could have possibly been in line to lose. I mean, he did the job to Roman Reigns, but that was so disappointing as well. Nonetheless, getting back to what we were talking about LFG, whose stock is going to rise in the loss? And hopefully it doesn't have the effect of Sting losing to Triple H at WrestleMania. Yeah, that's what I want to know. Like, can you do the job for your teammate? Can you take that bump that makes him look strong, or take that bump that makes her look resilient? Can you do that as if you're delivering the blow, as if you're winning? Can you lose as if you're winning? That's the question. And who can do that best? Macho Man was among the best at doing that. Who else? Who else do you think were the best losers? Who could lose as if they're winning?
Oh, like all time?
Yeah. Undertaker is one of the best at it.
How frequently did he lose, dude?
Well, see, we not talking about WrestleMania. Remember, he did the job for Steve Austin. Was that at SummerSlam 99 or 98? Yeah, he did the job for Steve Austin, for Stone Cold. Who else could lose as if they're winning?
Correct. That would have been SummerSlam 98.
Yeah. So let's find out if this talent, who amongst this talent can lose as if they're winning. And then we'll go from there. And then who, also who's going to win, who's going to look like they're winning, who's going to make it, who's going to sell themselves the best at winning, right? Making it look good or making it look great or making it look like you've who's got the best storytelling for the win as well.
What, Mick Foley?
Yeah, Mick Foley.
Hell in a Cell versus Undertaker.
Yeah. Chris Jericho.
Shawn Michaels.
Certainly Shawn Michaels. Oh gosh, yeah. The back-to-back versus Undertaker at WrestleMania. And before that, winning, WrestleMania 12. Winning versus Bret Hart. Then wait a minute. When he won the World Heavyweight title.
Oh, dude. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Finish your thought.
No,
here.
when he won the World Heavyweight title. Didn't he beat Triple H for that? Sweet Chin Music, and he fell out. You know what I'm talking about? That kick and fall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that right there. Oh, man. Chef's kiss, right? You know what I'm saying? Ultimate storyteller. But go ahead. What you was about to say?
Well, I was going to go one of our favorites with Dolph Ziggler.
Dolph Ziggler. Lose as if you're winning. That guy.
Lose and deserve to win. I mean, if that's not the embodiment.
Yeah, he's the big man. He's the Allen Iverson of professional wrestling. He never had a chance to be the guy he developed himself to be. Because I don't understand how a guy who's that good on the mic, that great as a worker, somehow didn't have enough. But a guy like John Cena did, who certainly did have enough.
Oh, 6 move Cena, that guy.
But I'm saying, so no, let's talk about it. Because I mean, 6 moves or not, he had enough for you to keep giving him that title. And for whatever reason, he sustained it. As limited as he is compared to Dolph Ziggler. What did he have over Dolph? No, I don't think he had anything over Dolph. And if we talk about physique, that's physique. People look different. Physique.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I mean, that we're going to lose on. That we won't have too much to stand on because of just the larger than life and how Vince specifically wanted a certain physique at that level. Certainly dating back to the 80s and early 90s.
He gave it to Edge and CM Punk at the same time. Same era. That's what I'm saying. What did Dolph Ziggler lack? What?
Boy,
was he injury prone? I don't know. No, because he worked a lot of dates.
Not enough to me.
Huh?
I'm answering. I'm saying I don't think that was it.
Yeah. It was just he decided he didn't like him. But he had everything. He had everything that you needed. All right. Allen Iverson didn't go to practice because he played it in the game. We talking about practice? We talking about practice. Not in the game. In the game, he was there. In the game, he was a problem. Chuck was a problem. And Shaq said it. Chuck was a problem for us. Chuck didn't care. Chuck came to the center of the line. I'm Shaq. Chuck was challenging me up top. To his peril, but he's still challenging me. He don't care. Dolph Ziggler had everything except for what they were looking for. But he had everything. And what they were looking for, no one knows what it was.
And that's the most disheartening part. That's why I'm legitimately bothered by it. That was always the one that should have, and it just never. And there was one particular run I remember, because look, the fact of the matter is his Raw and SmackDown matches looked like PLEs.
Exactly. And he kept doing it every week. He kept giving the fans
guys like Rob Van Dam delivered like that.
Right. Mr. Monday Night. If there was SmackDown named after a rock coin phrase, Mr. Monday Night was that guy.
I just that one I don't know why I'm just personally bothered by it.
Right. I'm just unsettled.
Like, you had to say that and put me in a sour ascot mood.
Yeah, that's right.
You lost the whole vibe, Gully. Like, man,
listen, because it's been on my man, it's a thorn on my side when it comes to thinking about professional wrestling. It's a thorn on my side. What if? Like, why did Shawn Michaels lose his smile? That trilogy? Oh man, to have Bret Hart beat him, knowing that Bret Hart, in my heart of hearts, I know Bret Hart would have gave it back. I know he would have. I know, but it's lost so much ground and like merit now that he was just like holding it hostage is basically kind of the takeaway. Yeah. Yeah, because he knew he was old. Because see, here's the thing, right? When you talk about holding it hostage, he knew he was leaving. See what I'm saying? Like, when he's holding it hostage because he already signed the contract. If he had not signed the contract, we don't know if we would have got the same behavior.
Was that because they were intending to try to replicate what had happened with the women's title?
What you mean? What?
Do you remember when that women's champion left WCW?
Yeah, Alondra Blaze.
Yeah, and she took the belt to
she threw it in the trash.
Yeah.
Right. What I'm saying is, they were afraid of that. And Vince, I guess the way it was said is Vince trusted Bret. He didn't trust Bischoff. So he didn't trust Bischoff. So that's why he could not afford to allow anything other than that belt to be removed from him. So what should have happened is, while he's under contract, you should have never let a guy going into his final year with that bit of turmoil. You should have never let him have the title to begin with. Like, the Undertaker should have took the belt. That's what I think should have happened. At some point, the Undertaker needed to have the belt as a mediator, because who was going to literally have a problem with the Undertaker or pose a problem with the Undertaker? Who was going to go into business for themselves against the Undertaker? Shawn Michaels darn sure wasn't. Bret Hart wouldn't have. So if the guy like the Undertaker had it, while you still need to figure out and resolve the conflict or the volatile nature between your best two talents in the business at the time, being Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, having a mediator with the title, be like, okay, to you guys, till we settle down this energy and figure it out, have the Undertaker with that run, and then let him drop the title again to whomever. I know that they tried it in your house. Well, I mean, because that's basically was it SummerSlam? That's what ended up happening at SummerSlam. But no, I could totally be wrong. I'm sorry, guys. I could totally be wrong. Right? I think that's what did happen. They gave it back to Bret, and Bret wasn't gonna play ball. But I thought by the time SummerSlam happened, Bret had already signed the contract. So they should have never put the belt back on him if he had already signed.
Interesting. And again, it adds to even more layers that were certainly outside the initial thoughts of the general fan base, for sure. And so the only other one that comes to mind, lastly, I would have said either the Bray Wyatt's loss to Cena. He always seemed like he did phenomenal in losses too, and certainly in Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
But with that being said, We will take our full timeout and dive into this evening's Raw. And like we said, LFG returns on Sunday. And so definitely be on the lookout for that as well.
It's K Cunningham, and you watching the Shop Report. I'm Homie Diallo, and you watching the Shop Report. My name's Chris Murray, and you're watching the Shop Report. Oh, you're Jay Knight, you're watching the Shop Report. It's Braxton Key, you're dropping in on the Shop Report.
Barbershop Jay, Quentin Hines, Super Bowl champion. I'm ready. Let's do it. I'm on.
Hi, I'm Mars Man, works at Mercury Stadium, and you're watching the Shop Report.
Hey, I'm Billy Butler, and thank you for watching the Shop Report. Hey guys, I'm Les Norman, former Kansas City Royal, and you're watching the Shop Report.
Commander Brown, Detroit Rivers Mountain Training, and I'm watching the Shop Report.
Hey, this is Doug Flynn of the New York Mets. Well, a few other teams, of course, too. And you're watching the Shop Report.
I'm Matt Ramos, and you're watching the Shop Report.
How you doing? I'm Rajay Davis, and you're watching the Shop Report.
How you doing? This is Nelson Figueroa, former Major League pitcher with a lot of teams. You're about to listen to the Shop Report.
Hey, this is Howard Johnson. You're watching the Shop Report.
Hi, I'm Heath Bell from the New York Mets, and you're listening to the Shop Report podcast. Yeah!
Hey, I'm Josh Tolley, former catcher of the New York Mets, and you're watching the Shop Report.
This is Edgardo Alfonso for the Mets, and you're listening to Shop Report.
Hey, this is Doc Gooden, and you're watching the Shop Report.
Hello, this is Mike Hampton, and you're watching Shop Report.
Hey, this is Herman Harvey, former NFL offensive lineman with the Cleveland Browns and the Baltimore Ravens, and you're listening to the Shop Report.
Cleaning the cracks on your pavement surfaces can take hours and be torturous on your body. Until now. Buy Cracky Weed Removal Tool was designed specifically to clean pavement cracks in a fraction of the time, all while standing up. Buy Cracky's patented design incorporates a two-sided steel blade and is encased by a durable fiberglass shell. Simply use the large end to clean big gaps, then rotate and use the small tip for narrow gaps. Made in the USA, Buy Cracky eliminates weeds to the root and is environmentally friendly. Buy Cracky. Save your back while you clean your crack.
What it do, sports fans? It's your man BSJ from the Shop Report. And guess what? The shop is now open for business, baby. If you're on Facebook, go to our fan page, The Shop Report, click on more, and then shop to view all products. Or if you're on Instagram, click on the shop tab to see all our products. I mean, what you want me to do? I'm selling merch here.
All right, just like that, we are back, and Raw kicked off tonight with Seth Rollins standing side by side with Bron Breakker and Paul Heyman. And of course, what we would get next is Sami Zayn. Once Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker are talking about the future of WWE and how it will run through Seth Rollins, and now that he's the top guy, of course. Zayn then interrupted, telling Rollins that he's not any different from the people he's been battling against for the past year.
Right.
Rollins and his group are no different from the bloodline right now.
Wow.
Sami says if Braun keeps looking at him like that, it's going to be a big problem. Rollins doesn't want to fight. Rollins simply wants Sami to understand that this is the vision for the future. And if Sami isn't with them, then he has become a target. Of course, Rollins states he doesn't hate Sami, but it doesn't matter how much he loves Sami either. The vision is too important. If Sami wants it, they can buy him a new spot on SmackDown so that he doesn't get in their way. Rollins says this is not a threat. It's an offer, a favor, and he wanted an answer by the end of this evening. And so, of course, that would lead into our first match, official match of the evening.
What a screenshot.
I don't make the rules here. Rhea Ripley defeats Roxanne Perez by DQ after, of course, an attack. They both went after Rhea and threw her out of the ring. Io came out, and Io went to drop kick them. And then, of course, they retreated after Rhea came back into the ring as well. So looking forward to possibly a tag match in the future as well out of that particular group.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
In a less interesting image.
Ooh, okay.
I've done everything in this industry except win a world championship. Logan Paul wants the World Heavyweight Championship from Jey Uso, and Jey makes his way to the ring to show off his new attitude post-Jimmy beatdown. And Logan continues to run his mouth until he catches a super kick from the Yeet Man himself. And any thoughts out of these two?
Another chance to challenge for a world title, right? Part-timer social media superstar in back-to-back years challenging for a world championship. Oh, wow. What are we to do? Man, I don't know how that
Do you
sounds.
agree with the statement, Gully?
What's the statement?
I've done everything in this industry except win a world championship.
Yeah, he has. He's main evented a pay-per-view. I'm sorry. He's two things he hasn't. He hasn't won a world championship, and he hasn't main evented WrestleMania. Now, he hasn't been the tag team champion either that I can remember. But in his case, being purely a single superstar, a tag team path or a tag championship wouldn't necessarily be on his radar. So outside of winning a world title and main eventing WrestleMania, he's already main evented the pay-per-view. And it wasn't a bad match, was it? Him versus Cody Rhodes, Double J, do you remember?
I do.
And then was it a bad match? See? Clear your throat. All right. Was it a bad match?
Look, I'm going to be the voice of the comments, all right, because we are a live show.
Yeah.
Looks like, hang on, here we go. Oh, man, they do not hold back here. Woo. Okay, yeah. Rob has commented saying, booking two people who need to be carried through a match for a world title. Good luck with that. Yow.
Wow. All right. Tell me how you really feel, Rob.
Right. Seriously. Oh my gosh. Rich Allen has chimed in. He said, in response to that, I've done everything in the industry. Bros won the U.S. title. That's it. No IC, no tag, no King of the Ring, no Money in the Bank, no Royal Rumble. I think there's a lot for you to do still.
But if you've already main evented a pay-per-view, do you need to do other things? If you've main evented, matter of fact, if you've main evented a pay-per-view for the WWE title, do you need to do other things? I guess if we try to compare it to other sports, that would be like, all right, I've been in the NBA finals. That would be like we can go with another AI comparison. Like, AI, he went to the NBA finals. Does he really need to be an all-star game MVP? Does he really need to have does he really need to lead the league? Does he have to lead the league in points? I know he did, and I know he's done those things, but did he really have to if you've already gotten to a point where you've carried a team as far as going to the NBA finals, 4 wins away of a championship in history? Logan Paul's main event of the pay-per-view. Does he really need an Intercontinental title? Like who else has main evented a pay-per-view that still needed to do that still needed to have another run, needed to have other things on this belt? You get what I'm saying? From that perspective, He already got to these points. Why do I need an Intercontinental title run? If I was perhaps maybe 1, 2, 3 point, a 3 count away from winning the WWE championship.
Right. Well, again, that's debatable.
It is.
You certainly are looking at this as to your point that those shouldn't have occurred because of the lack of the other.
Right. So now that they've done it, this is a family program. Hey, you should kiss first. But what if you didn't? Do you need to kiss? You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
you get what I mean? Like, why do he need to kiss if he's already
no labor pains? Just give you the baby.
Yeah. Well, all right. That. Yeah. So that's I guess that is the argument that I'm making for it. I guess to provide perspective. I do sort of what. So I say that because I do see where a lot of people feel about, when it comes to Logan Paul. Like, you have so many other things you haven't completed. So it's just a matter of providing perspective while I'm not completely sold on it. Like, it would take some more convincing. I'd stew on it. Like, I could change my mind from it. You know what I'm saying? From the position I'm in. I'm not sold on completely. Yeah, I'm all in on Logan Paul, or that argument that they're making doesn't make sense or doesn't hold up. I'm just providing at the moment, providing a perspective to let you guys know what I'm thinking about, which is, well, why I'm still kind of like, I don't really know. I kind of, I kind of agree with Logan Paul in that perspective. But, well, this guy's the world heavyweight champion right now. Yeet is world heavyweight champion right now. I think that's the bigger issue. And when I say that's the bigger issue is I'm saying that because can he continue to grow on the mic and in the ring? Because you've already given him the title. So does he want to keep doing what he's doing? Because it's worked already, or does he want to try to grow differently? I think a lot of
people. I love what you just said, because it is a very valid and interesting point, right? If there were a time to ascend,
yeah,
I would say there was no greater time than now. And I think if Logan can actually bring something out of him,
yeah,
it could very well answer that question.
Who's better on the mic right now, Logan Paul or Yeet?
Oh, no, Logan. Not even to me, that's not even close.
Okay, right. There are people who are on board with Jay Uso being a world champ.
Don't do that.
Listen, they probably in the comments. There are people on board with Jey Uso being world champion that hate Logan Paul, but he's better on the mic. And when I say better on the mic, I ain't going as far as saying it's not even close. But what I'm saying is Jay would do himself a service to have Logan Paul's mic skills. So if you are that good on the mic compared to the world champ that a lot of people like, how much else are you missing? Because I'm gonna ask you again. I gave it a ranking at WrestleMania. How bad was the match between him and AJ Styles? And AJ Styles is a first ballot Hall of Famer. How bad was the match? It wasn't terrible. It was far from terrible. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't bad. It was good. It was getting on the border of great. So, what are we really talking about here? How bad is Logan Paul? Two questions. How bad is Logan Paul really if he has these attributes, first of all? And then when it comes to Jey Uso, we like it, but is there room for improvement that he's willing to recognize? or is he gonna hold? Like I said, is he gonna hold on to where he is because it already worked for him?
Does Logan face a complex similar to John Cena?
In what way?
That younger demographic, and I mean the under 12, is certainly fans of his.
Yep.
And maybe a very secular group outside of that. But the overwhelming majority are against.
Yeah, of course.
Now, okay, but if that's stated, if that's our understanding of it, then Logan himself can never actually be a face, potentially, unless it's in that light, which means you will literally embody not only one of the greatest superstars of all time, whether we like it or not, but you are going to get a some version of, let's go Logan. Logan sucks.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, as long as it took for John Cena to turn heel, should Logan really just start embracing that? Or is it because of that younger demographic that he finds himself almost in this very kind of fluid set of circumstances that he can't truly just, because to me, it seems like Logan Paul going heel would be the easy solution and embracing that true heel aspect of it in a way that we have seen John do so now.
Or that we've seen Triple H do so. Right? He just leaned in.
But look, hang on a second. That's a bad example, dude.
No,
because look at what we were getting suspended.
That's not a bad example at all. That's not a bad example.
Nobody's getting suspended from school because of Logan Paul.
No, this is not a bad example at all. I'm saying the fact that I think that Triple H or Paul Levesque, he leaned into the fact, I think he read the room and like people genuinely didn't like him. And so he took that and he turned it into something. People genuinely don't like Logan Paul. So it's not a heel face thing, or, they don't play with it, right? Where we're going to boo him because it's time to boo him. No, we generally flat out don't like you. And we don't like you because of the credit and the positions you're getting in when you're still green in their eyes. So we genuinely don't like you. So you won't win over as a face because we really don't like you. Remember, Roman Reigns, his first face run, people did not like him. They booed him out of the building when he won the Royal Rumble with the help of The Rock before we talk about the final boss. They genuinely didn't like him, and it affected his confidence. Quite understandably, too, because I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm performing. I'm the guy that they say that they want. I'm the guy at the back, y'all just cheer what y'all see, but the people who put me in position to say they want me, why don't y'all? You get what I'm saying? And like I said previously, just a few seconds ago, I think Triple H read the room, knowing that the fans really don't like him, and so he created a way to lean into it. And by leaning into that authenticity, they authentically didn't like you. Matter of fact, The Rock did the same thing. That's why we have The Rock.
When he was kind of making his faces with the Nation of Domination. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, remember Rocky Maivia. Rocky sucks. Die, Rocky, die. That really affected his confidence. So he came with a persona that was able to authentically be able to, return that heat back to the fans. And that natural edge became something more appealing. And then they came back around. If he leans in the fact that they really don't like him, don't do the brass knuckles. Or actually, say, well, no, it was AJ Styles that turned him down. But if he leans into it, further into it, I think he'll find an authentic streak, an authentic court with the fans that they'll turn around and respect him. I do not like. Well, I guess let me say it in my case, I was not a fan at all of Thugonomics John Cena. I thought it was very corny, but somehow it People ate it up.
I thought you had a spinner belt.
Thugonomics John Cena. No, I didn't have a spinner belt. Thugonomics John Cena. I'm gonna say it again. Thugonomics John. I was not a fan of that at all. But it worked for enough people where I was like, okay, I'm able to look beyond it. I think for Logan Paul, if you really lean into people hating him, he's saying it right now. But I think if he can really lean in, kind of, if he can go to a deeper, more authentic place, then he'll be fine. And then that genuine connection will happen, and then people will start to turn over. I'm sorry. That's what I'm saying. The dude did he do a springboard dive in this WrestleMania match versus The Miz when we first seen him?
Yes.
So I'm saying, like, what happened? This guy came out the gate doing stuff that we wouldn't believe. Remember, he was in the guest spot at WrestleMania. Right? That was almost as believable as if Floyd Mayweather would have done something like that. He was in the guest spot at WrestleMania and proved that he really wanted to give it a go.
He, I'm certain, knows his demographics, and I'm almost positive that the brass behind the curtain understand it as well. He's got to lean into, he's got to make a choice here. And I think to some degree, him selling on this can help elevate Yeet even to new heights.
Yes. If he can get people to hate him more and then do the job for Yeet, again, who can lose like they're winning? If Logan Paul can learn to lose like he's winning, he's going to be just fine. Because eventually he's going to start winning again.
You know, what was interesting here is backstage, we had the Judgment Day, and Finn, of course, happy to see JD, but asked why he was not kept in the loop. We've seen this before a time or two. Instead of finding out why, he's told he has a tag match against the War Raiders as the Judgment Day look to reclaim tag team gold. And of course, that is exactly not how it went. The War Raiders were victorious over Finn and JD with the New Day on commentary after Penta cost Judgment Day the match, as you see here.
So Penta, Judgment Day, soiree, you say. I say, okay.
And Paul Heyman says to Sami Zayn in the locker room to, of course, take the deal and go to SmackDown, saying, once again, if he goes to SmackDown, he will face the winner of John Cena versus Randy Orton at Backlash. So now there's even more incentive for him to go.
Right.
Speaking of understanding, Triple H, master of Easter eggs, Becky Lynch, of course, comes back and says that expletive, female dog, has been coming after me since 2019. It was me. I did it.
Wow.
She's the one who attacked Bayley backstage.
Whoa.
All those months ago.
Yeah.
If you remember, who was it? Who done it?
Right. Way to read history.
That's right.
Right. Hey, but I'm here for it.
Well, absolutely. And we got more of that. She blamed ultimately Bayley for the attack. Bayley did nothing but whine and cry about being a bigger star. So Becky showed Bayley what a big star actually looks like.
Wow.
And of course, she has never apologized once. Now, when it came to Lyra, that Becky came back to beat on her for hanging out with Bayley all that time.
Wow.
And Becky says, a friend of my enemy is an enemy. Of course, she was interrupted and then said that she warned Becky by Bailey and others. She was caught up believing her and thought that they could be tag champs together, actually.
Oh, that is so
I
nice.
know. The illusion's dead, and she says she'll make her pay. But they were not set to square off in Kansas. That will come at a later date. So a lot of things building.
Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of, JD versus Penta is official for next week. Dark Gable taunts Penta backstage.
Yeah.
And, of course, at El Grande Americano, defeating his brother Phoenix at WrestleMania. And we also get the first mention of the Lucha Bros. And, of course, Penta then gave Gable a quick nap via a kick.
Yeah. Quick, easy nap. Good night. Windows, log off. Boom, 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 boom. Right. So I like to see where this goes. I think they're due for a good program together, these two. So I like for them to keep bringing us along with this. Nothing more needs to be said. Hey,
the Redeemer, perhaps. I left WWE, and on my way home to Bulgaria, I fell into the abyss. The abyss is where I found myself. Of course, that is Rusev.
Yeah.
Apparently, the abyss equals AEW.
Right. That's what it sounds like. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. But then he came back when they can appreciate him. There are things to do that don't involve having a world title. There's plenty to do. And he's a guy that wants to prove capable of doing that. And tell you what, he looked like it.
We're going to match with Stephanie Valkyrie. Oh.
No, you might as well leave that here.
All right. I thought that was her with the title. It might be.
Yeah.
Oh, anybody order cake?
Yeah, bro. We about to Barbershop is not gonna be happy with us, bro.
I hope she's not watching.
Oh boy. You can wait. Comments. We're gonna find out.
Anyway, she
they had a match and it was great and awesome.
Yeah.
They hit the ropes and everything.
Hit a few things. And she did defeat Ivy Nile. Somewhere in there.
All right.
The River Nile. Anyway, moving right along, Liv Morgan was officially approved time off to film a Hollywood movie. Dominic, of course, was asking to get the additional time off, was not permitted. And it does look like somewhere along the lines here, we're going to get Dominic versus AJ Styles. Gully, what do you say to this one?
Dominic needs all the help he can get, and he's getting it from the right person. Getting it from the right
Dominic needs the help.
I recognize everything you're saying about him on the mic and the promos he cuts and the things he says. Tell me, what does a suplex look like from Dominic right now?
Exactly. Well, there's certainly better out there.
Yeah. So Dominic does well to work with a guy like AJ. And
are you suggesting what some of the comments about Yeet and Logan would be applicable to Dominic Mysterio?
Absolutely. Are you convinced he's a good professional wrestler?
I would give him a 85 overall.
Okay.
And I would certainly say there are aspects or elements to his game that may not take place in the ring necessarily, that help elevate that number.
Right. Yeah, you're right. But
it's about complete, right? I mean, we've just seen this with LFG, where BJ in the ring, as an example, was underperforming. I mean, at best, that was a polite way of putting it.
Right.
And that was enough versus a guy who still, as shown on NXT, was still very green on the mic. So, again, what are we seeing? Guys, we can't put a belt on you no matter how good you are.
Right.
If we hand you this thing and you don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting type of kind of yin and yang, because one would have thought, okay, as long as you could deliver with what this is called, right, which is wrestling,
right? And can Dirty Dom do that at this point effectively?
I think he's on the mic skills. Absolutely. His charisma's there. All of that is there.
That ain't what I said. That ain't what I said. Tell you what I said. I said the one thing that you didn't say. He said his mic skills, his charisma, his outfits, his mustache, everything about that is the champ, is a regular champ. Can he go and wrestle in the ring enough that you would think that he would be convincing as champion?
Could you replace him with Yeet?
That's an interesting question. That's it. Yeah, you can replace him with Yee.
Then that says he has enough. And that is, if you want to say that's the sad state of affairs of today's.
I surely will. If you're saying that that's enough, yeah, I surely will.
This is one of those times where we need Paul to give us some like dry, just like an old fashioned, and just literally smack us into the next segment. But that's the fact of the matter, right? Like, I can't argue with these two individuals. If you want to call them transitional champions, I don't think so.
Whatever they are.
What if Logan Paul wins that, right? We theoretically said this a while ago when it came to him versus Cody Rhodes. But there's a legitimate shot he goes over. Remember how hard it was for us to make the case, like, why is this match happening in a PLE? There's no way it's going to go to him.
Right.
If it does, it's via DQ.
Yeah. Like I said, though, I'm staying on my position. Yeet is better than Dirty Dom. And in this picture here, it suggests to me that behind the scenes, Dirty Dom has got the ear of both AJ Styles and Liv. Oof. And so he can and he should get better. Is he there now? No, I firmly stand on that. He's not there. And therefore, any attempts to make him there, it's kind of forced. Then again, he found his way into an Intercontinental Championship and he won it. So it's pro wrestling. Beyond the pageantry and the soap operas, I want to see if guys can really.
Bro, I'm gonna let you chew on this for an entire week. Go ahead and think about, and I'm gonna say all time. At least we'll say modern, our era, our age. So we'll go WCW and up, right? From the 90s and then, and just from there, from mid 90s and up, of champions of yesteryear that remind you of today with those guys. That's all. I'll leave it at that. In addition to later this evening, we had Pat McAfee, as I mentioned, was cutting quite the promo live vignette.
Right, he needed to after that flaming he took from Paul Heyman last week.
Man,
everybody
was catching strays.
Earth, like scorched earth. Like homeboy looked like a scorpion, then got to him. Like,
bro,
he was scorched.
Well, and he may get more than that, dude, because he said he's going to. He's got a problem with anybody who has a problem with Michael Cole.
Oh, okay.
And basically, he called out Nick, who, of course, was running the show tonight. And then, of course, also Gunther. And he told him to make a match with him as soon as possible. So we will see Gunther versus Pat McAfee at Backlash in St. Louis.
No, we won't. No, we won't. IKYFL. No, we won't. No, why are you telling these people that lie? We should not lie to our friends. No, you won't. Pat McAfee versus Gunther at Backlash.
I will say this will be a meteoric fall for Gunther.
Yeah.
Because you, in theory, were night one against a mid-carder. You had some questions.
Yep.
And then now you're at least booked for a PLE. So at least maybe save your checks. Versus the announcer. Not in who look, this has got to be, to your point, it's probably Wade Barrett, right?
Yeah.
But come on, dude. As much as I vouch for the guy, and I understandably so, right? I was buying into some of the fundamentals, if you will. I just don't know. Again, I think sometimes, right? It's not your time. It's not your time, and it's just this would be rather disappointing. I mean, I don't know who has it worse, Gunther or AJ Styles.
Gunther does because he's the ring general. You know what I'm saying? AJ Styles been around much longer.
Yeah, but this is the last hurrah, and you're everybody's push pin.
Yeah. Why they doing
Don't
this?
forget that he's unofficially counting his dates like John Cena.
Who is?
AJ Styles.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. This is it for him.
Well, oh gosh, but I just don't want Gunther to fall on that match. I just want him to be able to win, and restore respect on his name, in the words of Birdman. What we got right here?
Yeah, so
we got right
we had
here.
some revenge. Logan Paul knocks WWE World Heavyweight Champion, the Yeet Man, out with a surprise punch with his reinforced titanium hand.
Woo!
Says, take that, Tin Man.
See? I want to know how that sounded, how that played out in real time.
Well, we have a comment from Michael. Haha, take that, Jay, you pathetic paperweight champion. That is not best for business.
Wow.
Mary comments, cheating coward. That's the only way he ever wins. He's never going to win the title from Jay.
Well, ask Jinder Mahal.
Well, ask Veer Mahan.
Yeah, and right, your guy. And let's be all the way real. Kane's first two appearances, I think among his first two appearances we've seen were in matches with Undertaker and Shawn Michaels. And who won both of those matches?
Did you really just do that?
Yeah, I did.
With them?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. I did.
I'll let you stew on that.
Yeah, I did. I did. I gotta make it make sense, right? Sometimes I'm in this thing like, yo, I have to sell myself on what I'm seeing. And these are the conversations I have to sell myself on what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
Man, what if Logan Paul win that World Heavyweight Championship? Yeah, man. Yeah, I got to make myself make it make sense. And right now, it's making a little sense here, the screenshot.
Well, all right. One more time, Sami Zayn, and a very passionate Sami Zayn, I'll say, tells Rollins that he refuses to be extorted and won't move to SmackDown.
Whoa.
And in a very Kurt Angle-esque way.
Yeah. Woo. Well.
And the result? Braun Breaker, of course, beats Sami Zayn via ref stoppage. After the match, Braun continues to attack him and delivers another spear to him. Seth tells Braun that Sami made his own bed. And then, of course, as we see here, delivers a final curb stomp.
Woo. Well,
the ultimate underdog, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
To a fault.
Yeah, that too. But I was wondering who was going to be able to connect with them and be a villain, if you will, be a bad guy for this group. And seems like Savage who said, all right. We needed somebody, and so Sami Zayn fits the bill. Like, he's the guy that we're gonna love, punching up on a heavyweight, if you will, that makes it worthwhile for these heels to develop, right? You know what I'm saying? You're only as good as your competition, right? You're only as feared as those that fear you or not. So Sami Zayn helps out a lot because by being the guy that they're going to be punching up on, but he's going to get his. Because, right, if I'm not mistaken, Sami Zayn has already beat Braun Breaker. He beat him for the title, right? Yeah, I see. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he hasn't beaten Seth Rollins before, has he?
I don't believe so.
Right. So this is good for business. He's elevated enough where something like this would make me turn on Seth and Braun. Seeing him jump a guy when he's down. It's great for business. I can dig it. Still would like to know where it's going because I only have guesses, but I have no solid proof. Except for, I don't know where it's going. I don't know where this is going, what it's going to be. But I'm glad Sammy's there to help neutralize it. That's the best I could say on it.
Absolutely. That concludes this evening's Raw. Any thoughts from, obviously you got the Yeet Man stuff with Logan. You got, Sammy and potential feud. I don't know if we'd call it that between Seth and his regime and Sami Zayn. And then, of course, on the women's side, obviously Becky Lynch and Bayley's building. Any thoughts from you on that?
Well, no. I want to see where it goes next week. I think this is a pretty all right Raw altogether. But I think there's more I want to see. I'm going to tell you, but you got this image up, man. I'm just looking at the fact that I think that the whole thing shooting on this issue, Seth and Braun are brought together simply to tear them apart.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think it's a way to elevate them both until they're ready for that singles match, and then they're gonna get it. They're gonna get to it.
All right. Well, with that being said, we're gonna take our final break, and then of course it wouldn't be a Turnbuckle show without a Name That Superstar, now would it?
Y'all, can you cue that up and let's just go right to it, man? I'm hot, man. Before I cool off.
All right. You asked for it.
We'll get y'all next time. Sorry.
What is it?
I say I just apologize to our sponsors. We'll get to it next time.
All right. So here we go. This individual was a part of WWF.
Ooh.
Also a part of WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Was also in his later career. Went to the Maryland Championship Wrestling as well. And was a part of a faction at one point, having to wrestle in a tie-in to, of course, LFG, being that loser has to leave.
Okay.
In this case, it was in reference to the faction specifically. D. Gully, Name That Superstar.
WWF, WCW.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the faction.
That's right.
If they lose, blow this up. You said WWF.
He did go against DDP for the U.S. title, for the heavyweight championship, but it was only on a Nitro episode. It was not an APLE.
All right.
D. Gully, Name That Superstar.
Hold on. Hey, Stevie Richards. No. Still looks pretty good shape, man. Gives me hope for as I age.
Right. You're not kidding.
Yeah. Swing and a miss. Who is it?
All right. So again, this individual.
You got two of them from me?
I do, actually.
All right, cool. Yeah, swing and a miss. I'll take this one.
Okay. So the individual right here on our screen is none other. This individual, of course, actually, with WCW, he was brought into WCW for a tryout under the name Mark Marrow. And then the booker, then otherwise known as Dusty Rhodes, liked and signed them to contracts. Of course, so again, this individual got his start thanks to none other than Dusty Rhodes. He joined WCW as heavy metal Van Hammer.
Van Hammer.
That's right.
I'm like, what you just said? I'm like, wait a minute. That is not Mark Marrow at all.
Correct. It is not Mark Marrow.
Okay.
But he was booked, or they were signed together.
Oh, he got to start with Mark Marrow. Yeah. Gotcha.
That's right.
Van Hammer.
That's right. Absolutely. Here we go. I'm going to get this next one up for you.
All right. Man.
D. Gully. This individual and, of course, Van Hammer have more similarities than just one. Besides, of course, being wrestlers. They actually were in the same companies at the same time.
Yeah, did this guy feud with Hogan?
Well, this individual once had a thing with, I believe it was Torrie Wilson. And of course, he was trained by Afa Anoa'i, of course, that name should from the Wild Samoans.
Yeah.
And of course, he started with the WCW against Chris Kanyon. So again, now we're talking about a very specific window of WCW.
Billy Kidman.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yes.
Yeah, there it is. He's back, folks.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey, now for a bonus point, what does Van Hammer and Billy Kidman share in common? Don't screw this up, dude. Come on.
Van Hammer and Jan Hammer, Stan Hammer, Billy Kidman, Billy the Kid, Billy Idol. What?
They were both a part of Ravens.
It was Flock. Oh God, yeah,
Come on, golly.
Yeah. He was known as Kidman. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you have it, folks. Right there, keeping these legends alive.
Yeah.
1 week at a time. So shout out to both Van Hammer. Obviously, that was an up-to-date image, and as well as Kidman. Both are continuing to inspire at their respective ages, because I'll let you Google and make that decision. But you can take my word for it, I promise. And so, yeah, both, of course, were part of Ravens flock. Kidman, of course, a gimmick of a heroin addiction. Less funny, but certainly in the 90s that would have worked. And of course, he would lose to Juventud at none other than the infamous Bash at the Beach. Yeah. And he, of course, aided Perry Saturn in defeating Raven in a match. And ultimately, that is what disbanded the group.
Right.
So, of course, definitely, we've talked Juventud, right?
Yep.
Just a week or two ago. And so, of course, that rematch that those two had were in the Palace of Auburn Hills, former Pistons Arena. Yeah, we have it. So, hey, we're back Thursday. That is all I got. It's late. Let's go.
Yeah, we'll be back Thursday with our esteemed host, Barbershop Jay, talking NBA playoffs, NFL draft, the Shador conundrum that we have.
Shador, not to Shador. That is
we'll talk about it because we got some thoughts on it for sure. For sure about that Shador, right? And when it comes to this WWE thing, we're gonna talk about it. Like you said, we called it augmented reality. But what did you call it today? What did you figure it out? It's called.
Well, we're renovating. The fourth wall has officially been demoed.
The fourth wall renovation for sure. Yeah, so there's a lot more to that. I think more issues or more, talking points when it comes to that. Because it is fascinating. It is the new phase and it's the current era where we at with professional wrestling. And it's a lot to toy with, right? Because we're sitting there watching the suspension of disbelief being toyed with right in front of our eyes as fans. And it's pretty interesting. We get some comments and things like what we get from Dave Meltzer and then what we get from the final boss regarding what we expect to see as fans who are not expected to have opinions about things that they see from a sport or from a form of entertainment that we actively participate in. It's weird stuff, but nonetheless, keep rocking with us. You find us on the YouTubes, the Instagrams, the Facebooks, the Twitters, the TikToks, and all. The Shop Report 365@gmail.com for any questions, comments, criticisms, or concerns. You can get at me at WYM Gully on Instagram and on TikTok. Double J, shout out your handles.
That's right. Absolutely. And of course, as you see there, you will see actually in both our intro and outro now, direct links via QR code to at least the Facebook page, as well as TikTok. That's all it allowed me to do. Gully, on the other hand, definitely has one that has a direct link to all channels. So get that while it's still active. Of course, as he referenced, We will be back Thursday, all things sports. And as Barbershop Jay always likes to say,
like to
if
say,
you want to know what's happening, come to the shop.
Walk-ins are always welcome. Holla.
Holla.